My name is Robert Waddell. I have a beautiful wife and 4 kids, 2 boys and 2 girls. When I was 11 and they told me I had polycystic kidneys, I was pretty distraught, and I sat outside on the deck for a while and wouldn't talk to anybody. Renal failure usually happens 4th, 5th decade of life, and it hit me about 38 is when they put a fistula in, was preparing me for dialysis. Even though I've seen my mother go through it and I had family members that were on dialysis, I didn't expect it to be as tough as it was actually going through it.
I was actually pregnant with our youngest at the time, so that was not part of our plan at all. Did not realize that he would start just going downhill that fast.
3 times a week I was at a dialysis center, and when I came home I was cold, completely frigid. It would be in the middle of the summer and I'd have a heater on me because I was so cold.
He would come home from work and his ankles and his feet would just be so swollen. When you would take his socks off, you could see the indentations, and just so tired.
You slowly degrade. At first you feel pretty good, and then after you've been on it for probably about the 2nd month, I was starting to decline physically.
My biggest scare was how long would he have to wait for a kidney. I was always really scared of that.
The kids were frightened because first I had a fistula and I had all these holes on my arms where the dialysis needles would go in. It was a big adjustment for them.
He would just not be able to run around and be as active with them.
For me, for my mother, who I've seen go through that as well, it's a hollow existence. You're basically just existing.
Well, actually, his father had told him, read something about the stem cell transplant, and that it was actually here in Louisville. He even remembered, Dr. Ilstad's name.
The experiment part of it and the clinical trial part of it really scared my wife. She tried everything she could possibly try to talk me out of this.
I just, from the beginning of that, said there is no way you're going to do that, because it was so new to me. I hadn't, for the people that I knew that had transplants, they just went and had a kidney transplant. I had not heard of doing the stem cells with it. So I was very, very leery of it.
The reason I was so headstrong about doing this is that I was a relatively young man. I was 41 years old, and I knew the complications from the medications that you have to be on, and I knew that the lifespan of a kidney is, the donated kidney, is about 20 years, I think, is about max normally. So I was destined to have another transplant. So I said, this may be something that I want to try, even if it doesn't work.
My biggest fear, honestly, was the immunosuppressant drugs.
Normally, you'll take, it depends on the patient, but, upwards of 10, 15, 20 pills a day.
I remember him looking at me going, this is my body, and this is what I want. I do not want to live on immunosuppressant drugs the rest of my life. I'm young. And he said, I really want to do this. And so finally I said, okay, look into it. Rob still wasn't big on telling a lot of people. But at this point, I'm like, I kind of felt like I was going to crumble, because the kids were so young. I'm like, oh my gosh, how are we going to do this? I had confided in my friend Kim. Well, of course, she then went on and told her husband, and she told me, she said, if he needs a kidney one day, Hugh will get tested.
And you think, well, great, that's nice, but you never think first we'd match or he might follow through with it.
It's a pretty strenuous testing, and when he was the match, we couldn't believe it.
I was on dialysis for 2 months prior to my transplant, and the transplant happened at Northwestern in Chicago.
He had a kidney transplant, and he also received stem cells from his donor, which is the most, just the really exciting part of his whole situation.
They had to have the stem cells, obviously, for the clinical trial, and the kidney, obviously, for the kidney transplant, but the stem cell donation was about maybe a month ahead of time. And then the actual transplant was May 7, 2009. It was almost surrealistic to have that, my family, his family there, and us, basically shaking hands. He went off to his room, I went off to my room, and my immune system was not reduced entirely. Instead, it was lower to the point that it would accept the donated stem cells. Now I have what is known as mixed chimerism. So basically I have 2 immune systems, the way I understand it, in my body that are functioning right now. It was probably about the year mark afterwards that I basically got through all of that, and I'm better than ever. I mean, literally. You can ask my kids about that.
It is amazing, the difference. I mean, now they can hardly keep up with him.
And actually, she thinks maybe I've been fixed too good because I'm so active now.
People still are like, are you sure he had a kidney transplant?
I am living proof of this miracle that has happened to me. Someone who gave me a kidney changed my world. And now the participation in the stem cell study changed my world as well.
You don't know how many people that this has touched, how many lives that this research in the stem cell study has touched, with my husband being so healthy.
Obviously, without their funding, I wouldn't be here today, living proof that this study works.
And my hopes are that more and more people are able to have access to this study like we did. And in order to do that, we need lots of people to support this foundation and their cause.
Thank you for making a difference in my life and my family's life.